back, everybody, to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and of course, I'm joined as always with my co-host Darian Smith and Jimmy Marion. And guys, it's game week again as UAB welcomes in the first place USF Bulls into Protective Stadium this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. We certainly hope that everybody listening can make it out to Protective Stadium. Weather looks good. But of course, if you cannot, the game will be nationally televised on ESPN2. So that is multiple weeks in a row that UAB will have national exposure. And also, it's Children's Harbor Week. So this is the seventh year since the return that they've done the Children's Harbor annual tradition. It's actually been its eighth year, but seventh season actually playing in the uniform. So great to see Trent Dilfer, extending this Children's Harbor game after Bill Clark. But before we get into previewing this matchup with the first place South Florida Bulls and our UAB Blazers, we do want to give a shout out to the Patreon. If you are not subscribed to the Blazer Victory Podcast Patreon, go to patreon.com/blazerpod. For as little as $5 a month, you get access to all exclusive content on that Patreon. And right now we have 32 exclusive episodes, including our after review film review episode where we broke down the Tulane game film after rewatching it. And this is, where Darian especially shines and, kind of grading and breaking down that offensive line performance against Tulane. So if you are not a Patreon subscriber, go to patreon.com/blazerpod and go ahead and subscribe. And also, hey, if you want to pay get a discount, you can pay for an annual subscription and save 10% off. So definitely check that out. But Darian, great job as usual, especially breaking down that offensive line performance this week in Tulane. Jimmy and I both learned a lot just hearing you talk, and I know our listeners loved hearing it, and they continue to learn from you. So we appreciate you doing that for us. But again, listeners, if you are not subscribed, it's well worth $5 to go ahead and subscribe.
Definitely appreciate it, bro. We try to do our best. I feel like we all bring something to the Patreon feed that I think is a really, really good value. It's $5, right? It's $5. Most meals you get, if you go to Subway right now, you're guaranteed to pay over $5. So I think the value is there. I think the effort and time that we put into doing this is there. I think it's worth it. I think the value is over $5. It's worth it. So we definitely appreciate you guys' support. We want to just give you something that you'll be able to continue to support and be proud of. So thank you guys again.
Definitely. And right now, as of recording this free show, we are at 104 Patreon subscribers. So thank you guys so much for helping us get over 100 Patreon subscribers. But next goal is 200. So help us spread the word, share a friend, share with a Blazer friend or two, and let's get this thing up to 200. And like Jimmy said the last episode, let's get this to be the best Patreon in the AAC. So.
Hey, we know we're already the best Patreon in the AAC. I'm just saying,
let's
let's
go.
get the highest. Let's just get the most number of patrons.
And another thing is, like, on the business side, when we're able to present numbers like this, you see that John was able to put together such a wonderful event that we had at Cahaba Brewing. Shout out to them. But I think businesses are able to look at numbers and they want to do more business with us. They say if we're able to galvanize a group and we can present numbers saying, hey, we have these amount of people that paid us to listen to this. So a lot, most of the times they will come out to your business establishment and support the Blazers in that way. So if we have these numbers, we can present it to more businesses and we can do more things, involving the Blazers. So it's very important on the business side. So we appreciate you guys. We had a great show. Everybody came out to Cahaba Brewing, and I did not expect that many people, John and Jimmy. Like it was great. I came in, we had a couple beers flowing, and it was really wonderful. And I really want to double that number next time.
Hey, they had it blocked off a corner over in Cahaba Brewing. We ended up taking over the whole dang, floor. If you guys weren't there, whether you were at the game at Tulane or you couldn't make it out, it was a tremendous turnout. And to Darian's point, this is just the beginning. You've got 104 people that are paying for premium content. You've got close to 100 people that came out to support UAB and to support Blazer Victory, in our first live watch party. This is just unreal. So we just appreciate y'all so much, and we can't wait to keep it going.
Definitely, and I'm so glad you guys brought this up with the watch party. Yeah, we were blown away again, by all of you guys, listeners that showed out, and Blazer Nation that showed out to that watch party this past Saturday. Like Jimmy said, we were only going to have a corner of the tap room, but we ended up taking over the full tap room. We ended up having to force a Clemson watch party outside because of the UAB fans taking over.
Let's
Blazer
go!
Victory Podcast listeners taking
Our
over
territory.
that thing. So they had to go outside to watch that Clemson Syracuse game while we watched UAB Tulane, showed them what was up. So, so definitely, yeah, you guys showed out, and we really did have over 100 people. So it was, we were blown away, very blessed. And like Darian said, next time we do this thing, let's go for 200, and definitely and hopefully get a dub next time we do do a watch party. So definitely be on the lookout for doing that again in the near future. And hey, in basketball season too, so we'll try to work with Cahaba again to see if we can get something else later on. But guys, we've got a game this week. As the South Florida Bulls come in first place in the American Athletic Conference at 2-0. Come into Protective Stadium this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock as our UAB's 0-1 in AAC play after falling to Tulane 35-23 this past Saturday. But very winnable game. In fact, Vegas odds when they first opened the Vegas line, UAB was a 2-point. Was it 2 or 2.5? I can't even remember. UAB was a slight favorite. Now that is flipped since it opened. It is now currently sitting at South Florida as a 3.5-point favorite in this ball game, but still a close spread. Kind of a toss-up. So very winnable game for UAB this Saturday, and almost we kind of hinted in our instant reaction for Tulane, like this is a must-win game for UAB. Like if UAB drops this game and drops to 1-5, like we could be scaring worst case scenario down the line, but a very winnable game. Now South Florida, obviously very talented team coming in 2-0, first place in the conference. But guys, they've got a quarterback at South Florida, a freshman quarterback who I think we need to talk about first to start this offensive discussion for the South Florida Bulls. Byron Brown. He has thrown for over 1,200 yards just through 5 games. But not only that, he is a threat running the ball. Is he? And it's important to let our listeners know. In quarterback rushing stats, sacks are taken into account for the yards. But you look at his 89 carries, 330 yards, 5 TDs on the ground. He is the Bulls' leading rusher, their quarterback. And Jimmy, we were kind of talking on the Patreon or right before we recorded. How many times has he been sacked?
23. Michael Jordan.
He has been sacked 23 times in 5 ball games, and he still has 330 yards rushing, leading the Bulls.
That 23 times is more than double any other QB in the American. And that's actually third most sacks nationally. And if you guys think that Zeno's taken some hits, he's been sacked 11 times this season, 7 of which I believe came in the Louisiana game. So we know that Brown's going to scramble around. I'm not sure if you look at the distribution of those sacks. They did play Alabama, so I have to look to see just how many was against the Tide. But 23 times regardless is a lot through 5 games.
Yeah, no doubt. And Darian, we were talking earlier too, like when you pop on the South Florida film for Byron Brown, and I know in our text thread you were impressed with him as well, but what pops off to you about their quarterback and just seeing the way he plays?
Kid is dynamic. If you let him get outside the pocket, he's dangerous. He has some wheels on him. He's probably He's probably one of the, if not the fastest guy on that offense. If you let him, he can make some moves. He's a good runner, but I'm impressed with his passing. Like, he can sit in the pocket. He can sit in the pocket and he can deliver strikes. He can throw it. He can throw it down the field. I think that's going to be the focus point of course, of our defensive game plan, is to contain him, and we're going to have to make him just beat us from the pocket, in which he's shown that he can do that against teams. But I think we have a lot more information on him. Like, his main target is Sean Atkins, the nifty slot receiver. And I watched that game against Rice. This guy kills slant routes. He will spam a slant route, because a lot of times teams are blitzing, right? You're gonna blitz, you're gonna contain the guy. That's what I would do. That's why he has a lot of sacks, because it's gonna be a gamble against this team. You have to gamble, and if they're gonna, I'm gonna force them to be one way. I'm gonna force them to throw the ball downfield, and I'm gonna take away that slant route. I would go cover one, and I would just send pressure on them. And not only to just get to them, but just to contain them, to stifle that quarterback run. I feel like when you get into trying to play in between, like trying to, probably help in the passing game, and that's when you fall into, he'll gas you on the ground and through the air, because now you're playing back on your heels. I'd rather us play full speed and contain him and get a couple sacks, rattle him, maybe get some turnovers, force them. They will fumble the ball. They're not that good of a rushing unit, even though they can run the ball with the running backs. But a lot of times, if you're sending added pressure, you have more guys and more assignments. You can get to the running back as well. You can stop him behind the line, get a TFL. So I'm looking forward to us in our game plan. We'll really be paying attention to how we're going to stop him running the ball. And on the outside, make sure it's going to be one-on-one. Make sure they don't get behind you. On the inside, Sean Atkins, they love to throw to that bubble. A lot of times you'll see we'll play, and it's always like a slot receiver that doesn't have a man over him, or that's like 10 yards off of him. Well, guess what? They're going to throw right to that bubble every time. If you give it to them, they're going to take it. Especially with Sean Atkins in the slot. The guy is very, very good. He's a very good slot receiver, man. He make tough catches over the middle. He can break the tackle, and he can take it to the house if you let him. But you just got to be aware. I feel like their offense, even though it's very dynamic, is very simplified. Right? It's gonna be, I'm throwing to the bubble to Atkins. Oh, you're blitzing. I'm gonna throw a bomb over the top. I'm gonna try to run if you give it to us, but it's gonna be one of those things. Most of the time, they have other receivers, they have tight ends, they will do that, but you have to take away what they want to do best. It's something the New England Patriots would do a lot. They take away your first option, your first and second option. So if we can do that, but we have to be sound. We have to be so sound. If we play connected as a unit, our defense can show up. They can make an impact. We can force some turnovers, but we have to understand the game plan. We have to do it full speed. Our eyes have to be disciplined, and we can come out on top, and we can contain him. They will hit some plays. Understand this. We're gonna get some sacks. They're gonna get some long balls. That's just how it goes. Don't expect for every time that we're gonna win those battles. No, they've proven that they're gonna strike. They've done it against every other team. We just have to force the direction in which they do that. And I feel like they struggle in the red zone. Once they get down in the red zone, you don't have those bombs to go to. It's so the field is short. So even if they strike and they go for 40 yards, if we get down to the red zone, we take that away, I think we can force them into field goals.
Hey, Darren, I'm so glad that you brought up the red zone, because really that's one of the points of emphasis for me as we look at this ball game, is which defense can bend but not break. USF is ranked near the bottom in all of FBS in red zone scoring percentage. They're actually ranked 121 out of 133. UAB is not far behind them at 93, but both teams are on the offensive side of the ball and defensively too, let's be honest. But while we're talking about the offense, are not really taking advantage of those red zone opportunities in the way that they want to. And as I look at the rest of this offense, you talked about a few of the players, wide receiver wise. You mentioned Atkins, the Wagner transfer. I was really impressed that it seems like Brown is Atkins has been the most consistent. He's also, a punt returner. He's involved in many different facets of the game. But they've had a different wide receiver step up, I feel like, in almost every game. So they've really spread it around. They've got 3 guys that are ranked in the top 15 in the American right now in receiving yards. And, when I look at the run game, and then I want to toss back over to John, is a really big point of emphasis for me is South Florida right now, they're top 5 in the country in rush attempts per game at roughly 48 attempts per game. And that's about 58%, or excuse me, 58% of their offensive snaps. And they're also top 15 in the country in rush yards per game right at 203 rushing yards per game. And conversely, UAB's bottom 5 in the country in opponent yards, per rush at 6.2 on average. And opponents are averaging nearly 220 yards a game on the ground. That's good enough for 124th in the country. So when you talk about that run D versus that run O for South Florida, that's going to be crucial that we're able to at least slow that down some.
Yeah, 100%, Jimmy. And I mean, I know, we talked earlier about how Byron Brown, their quarterback, is leading the way in rushing, but hey, they've got a pretty good back. Naquan Wright, 70 carries so far, 287 yards, a little over 4 yards per carry. I mean, they love to hit you with the RPO. And I mean, when you've got a running quarterback like Byron Brown, I mean, that you have to account for, like Darian mentioned earlier, that's taking an extra defender away. So if you spy on the quarterback, hey, they're going to gash you. And they seem to do that against Navy. I got to watch the Navy game. Rice, they did a pretty good job doing that. Now, Alabama, they did not. But, I mean, this is just a balanced attack offense. They run the ball well and they throw the ball well. But it kind of goes back to what Darian was saying earlier. Like, you have to be aggressive, on defense against this offense. You cannot sit back and drop 8 or they are going to pick you apart and eat you alive. Like with the slant that Darian just mentioned, are they going to hand it off to Wright and he'll gash you, kind of what Tulane did, late in the game. But I agree 100% with Darren. You have to run cover 1 press. You have to engage that. You've got to blitz some. You've got to rattle this young quarterback. And that's another thing that we need to kind of mention here is that this quarterback is young. He's a freshman. Byron Brown is a freshman. So UAB will need to hit him and hit him early to have a chance in this ball game.
Yeah, if you're sending a blitz, confuse them. I always send a blitz, but send a different blitz. If you walk guys up to the line and have the linebacker in the middle fake blitz, have the other ones go and have him sit back to take away that slant, it's coming. That's the thing, it's enough information there that what's coming. On the outside, they don't do too many routes. They're gonna do fades, they're gonna do goals, and they're gonna do deep posts. That's about it. And they're gonna hit you deep because a lot of people. I primarily watched that Rice game. Rice in the first half, they did a good job. They took away that run game, and they were physical. They played up. They were connected, and then the difference being is I don't think Rice expected them for whatever reason to go deep as they did. They just started bombing on Rice, and Rice just was not prepared. I don't understand why they wasn't as prepared, as they should have been. Like I saw some plays where some guys just made some good plays, but it was other plays where guys acted surprised. Like it was kind of weird, but they just started bombing on Rice, and that's how they got big chunk yardage, and they got Rice on their heels. So you can't take away that run option. Another thing is you can't get them behind the sticks. I think that's going to be important because this is a team that loves to go tempo. They go fast. They go really, really fast. I'm telling you, if they get any kind of, it can be 1 yard. If they get positive yards, they're going. So you make sure you keep the pressure up. You keep the aggressiveness up. If they do make a play on you for 20 plus yards, get up and do it again. Continue making them do it. Because when they do that, they're taking these shots. They have to hold the ball. And then all it takes is for a guy to get hit while he's throwing it, to fumble it, or throw an interception or errant pass to rattle him. So I think this is a game of gambles, but I imagine it in my head as a gamble with a hedge, because you know what they want to do. I keep on stressing this. You know it's going to be Atkins in the slot. You know he's going to bam bam. He's either going to hit you with a slant or a wheel route. That's what he's going to do. You know on the outside, you know those guys want to get behind you on a go route or a deep post. So if you have that information, take it away. Make them do something differently. If you got a whole bunch of guys in the box and you're doing creative blitzes, know what gap you're supposed to hit. Go to it fast. A lot of times during the Tulane game, I saw us doing a lot of side-to-side movement. I'm like, what are we doing? Or I saw guys bust responsibilities. Like, they're going with the running back. Two guys go with the running back. Now all of a sudden, Michael Pratt is going down the field running the ball. One player that I did appreciate, and I understand why he's playing now, is Will Sorrells. He was the one guy that was pointing. He seemed really alert on where to go. And I know we talked about it. It was like, I wonder how he worked himself on the field. Well, because he knows where to go. He seems like he studied film. I need all of our guys to be connected, especially on run fits. One thing we did poorly against, and we finally did good against it late in the game, but our safeties, their run fits were horrible. In the game against Tulane, come down, know where you're supposed to go, gap integrity. I'm looking at other teams and they're all connected. The run game isn't all on the front seven. I felt like they played physical for the most part. They played pretty decently. It was a neutral battle against their offensive line. And our linebackers, shout out to Jackson Bratton. A lot of times he came down and he blew up blockers. He came down with force and he got into the backfield. What I was most disappointed in is our safeties and our DBs and their run fits. Like, we have guys, we force them to where you want them to go, and our safeties just wasn't there, or they took a very poor angle. And you go look at other teams, and it's totally different. So it's almost like our front seven is playing one game, and our back half is playing a whole other game. We need them to be all together to execute a game plan. If we can do that and limit this South Florida offensive, their explosiveness, we take away that quarterback run game. We have enough on offense. If our offensive line is sound, we have enough on offense to put up a lot of points on this team. They're decent. They're okay in the front seven. They're not like how Tulane was. I don't think their back half is any good at all. They have one safety that I like in Evans. He plays physical. He comes down. But other than that, we have wonderful skill guys, plenty of them that I think can eat against this team. So if we play sound, force them into a couple punts, maybe get a couple turnovers here and there, make them march the field and make them score in the red zone. That's important because we can hold them. They're going to move the ball between the 20s. They will. Make them score. Make them make difficult passes. Take away Atkins in that slot. And I think we can win.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Darian, about the red zone defense, because let's face it, this is going to be a high scoring game. And Jimmy, what was that over under it right now that we're recording it?
67.
Yeah, you might want to go over that. But it's like, hey, what Darian just said, make a couple stops, force them into some field goals when they hit the red zone, or maybe hopefully even a turnover. I think UAB's leading the country currently in forcing fumbles. So that is something to watch for in this game too. But real quick, before we give our predictions, because I know we're at 25 minutes and we try to keep these previews under 30 minutes if we can. But I just wanted to just kind of talk about the experience that their quarterback, Byram, had at Navy. I mean, this was a game at Navy that they fell down quick, and it was 14-0 before they blinked, Navy, in that ball game. And Byram kept his composure. He ended up with his stats was 26 of 34, 3 touchdowns, 338 yards. I mean, this guy, and we're talking about blitzing him. Hey, Navy tried everything but the kitchen sink. They threw at him, and he handled it. Now, I do think we have a better D-line and defensive front than Navy does, because Navy is pretty small, which, I mean, you can expect out of out of an academy. But I mean, yeah, we're just going to have to get to him and get to him early on and hit him and rattle him. And, with him being a freshman, they're going to have to try to do that. No personal fouls, but just try to rattle him early on. But, Jimmy, do you have any other thoughts on this, on the defense from South Florida? Because I know they brought in a lot of transfers, too, on the defensive side.
Yeah, that's one of the impressive things is that they also, like UAB, has a first-year coach. In the press conference, Dilfer talked about the relationship with Golish, and both offenses are going to get up and down, no doubt. Defensively, you're certainly going to want to, take advantage of them through the air. Not that you can't take advantage of them on the ground. We saw the improvements in the run game this past week. Defensively, Navy had, what was it, 30 points, and Navy was only averaging about 17 or 18 points a game going in.
Right.
South Florida's given up some big points in some other games too. They held Bama to 17 and whatever the heck that game was. But yeah, it's certainly going to be a shootout. I think a lot of points are going to get scored. I like what Darian said about our skill players being able to feast, hopefully. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then one other note real quick is that I'm glad you brought over the statistics on turnovers, specifically fumbles, John, because that's something I didn't realize. And I had to sit back when I saw the statistic that says UAB's actually top 5 in the country in takeaways per game. That made me think for a second because we're talking on the immediate reaction against Tulane. And I even brought up the point where I was like, I'm not really sure that our, starting DBs have really forced turnovers. They've been in position a few times. But it's been the fumbles. It's been special teams against Georgia, running down the field, forcing turnovers, twice against Tulane, punching the ball out and recovering. So, and speaking of South Florida, they had 3 fumbles against Navy. So that's going to be something, John, you've referenced it a couple of times, is going to be real key is can you force the very electric and talented quarterback, on some of those carries to turn the ball over and give UAB even more favorable field position.
Definitely. And before we jump into giving our predictions, I do just want to give a shout out to, we need to do this more often, but the Bay Area Examiner does a great job with a podcast covering South Florida sports. So definitely, Blazer fans, check that out. The Bay Area Examiner, they do a great job. And they also have a Patreon too. So check out their podcast and see what they're saying about heading into the game with UAB South Florida. But guys, it is prediction time, and I'll start us off. Oh, I'll start less than us. How this game can go so many different ways, but last couple weeks, our listeners know it. I predicted UAB to lose in both games, but it's time, fellas. You saw the emotional press conference that Trent Dilfer had with the Children's Harbor. The players should be locked in and motivated for this game. Now, I don't know what the hell happened against Louisiana wearing those Smile Mile jerseys, but they were not locked in. But I think they're going to be locked in wearing those gray lime alternate uniforms this Saturday afternoon. Guys, I think UAB gets it done 31-28 over the South Florida Bulls. And Darian, I'm going to throw it to you next.
So what was that? You said 34-28?
Oh no, 31-28.
I'm going to go 45-41 UAB.
Hey, and before I throw to Jimmy, what that seemed low. Let me change that to 41-38 because I was just talking about it's going over, and I don't think 31-28 gets it over. So yeah, 41-38. Yeah. Darian, you want to respond?
Yeah, and I give, I said 45-41. If our offensive line, you said it's Children's Harbor. If we play with that consistent effort that I'm looking for, that's what that's all we need is consistent effort and know where we're supposed to go. If we can stifle them, because they're gonna have probably kind of the same game plan against us. If we can play with effort, know where we're supposed to go, and go there intentional, their defensive front is not as talented as Tulane was. We went against the most talented defensive fronts we're gonna go against all year, and we proved that we can hold up, and we did not play to our standards still. I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about mentally. So if we get our assignments right, it's scary what this offense could be. And I think this is a prime opportunity. We have enough information in the bank to say, guys, I need them to play with an edge this game, the offensive line. And I hope they hear this. I hope they hear this because I want them to know that I'm looking. Blazer Nation is really looking at you. Our quarterback has proved themselves. Our receivers, running backs, they have it. It's all up to our offensive line. If they do that, we can gash them every drive. But it's on them.
Guys,
Jimmy?
the emotions I'm going through right now and the roller coaster that as I'm trying to think about this prediction, I told the guys before the pod, I said, let me go last. And I think going last even made the situation worse.
Hey, and Jimmy's never wrong with his predictions too.
No, I don't want to be right ever. So before the show, what I had in my mind was, and first and foremost, I said on the last pod, I said, don't stop believing. I believe that we can win this game. No doubt. But going into the podcast, my truthful thought all day was a close loss for UAB with a final score is actually the opposite of what John said. I had South Florida 41, UAB 38, and I sure as heck hope I'm wrong. But that is what my head has been saying all day. My heart, I was going to flip it, but then John picked the score. So now I'm going to go back to what my head said all day.
Oh, man. No, Jimmy, I was going to say, you know that hat I wore to the NCAT game?
Yes.
I have not worn that hat since that game. So by God, this Saturday, you know what hat I'm going to wear?
You better wear that damn hat. I might bring me and John are going to be twinsies. I might have to bring out the same hat that we both own.
Yes. Good luck, Mojo. You got to.
That's right. Hey, sneak peek though. Do not pick the Blazers against UTSA because John's going to be at the beach.
Yes, I will be at the beach.
Oh God.
So hey, but so that game got announced. It's at 7:00, so we should still be able to roll as normal. With our recap and stuff. I'll be able to watch it. But before we wrap this up, Jimmy, I think we're in baby watch season, aren't we?
Hey, that's right. We may not make it. I may not be at the game because we may be having baby number 2. Natalie, my wife, is due in under a week and a half. She's due on Friday the 13th.
Woo!
So coming up soon.
H2,
yeah.
Let's go,
baby.
H2. We got H1, Little Hatton, and we got H2 on the way. So y'all be keeping me and the fam in your thoughts and prayers, man. Everything go good.
H2, is that oxygen?
H2O?
It's H2O. What is H2?
Boy,
is that
H is hydrogen. H2.
Hydrogen. Baby hydrogen. Baby
we
hydrogen.
Are not chemists. We are not chemists on this podcast.
That's right. I can't even boil water.
Darian cannot be a chemist. Yeah, that's the one thing that he cannot do.
I knew it was close. I was about to say, I was like, no, you got to add the O on to it. I forgot you got to have it all together. But yeah, baby hydrogen. Let's go. H2, baby.
Let's do it.
Let's go. All right, Jimmy, go ahead and close us out.
Hey, Jimmy's prediction better be wrong. Blazer Nation, just blaze.
Get the dub.